So everybody's freaking out about the Middle East right now, and all of a sudden, of course, everybody's a cultural expert on what takes place over there and military tactics, strategy, weaponry. I don't claim to have all the answers because the reality of all this is that we don't really know anything. Nobody's in any of these meetings behind closed doors between world leaders. Like, you guys have no clue what's actually being said or what people's actual intentions are. All we know as a population is a ruse. Let's just get that out the way first and foremost. However, if I could help provide some context for some people who are a little bit more nervous than usual in terms of what to expect with World War III or retaliation, things like that, I hope to provide you guys with some context. Like the Middle East quite a bit, and so I'm not saying I know anything, but I do feel like I can provide you guys with some context. So the first thing is, where does our relationship with Iran even begin? Back in the day, like I think it was the 70s, the Ayatollah, the Iranian government was overthrown, basically. It was the Shah who was friendly to United States people, the United States government. You look at pictures of Iran, videos of Iran, almost like Afghanistan back in the 50s and stuff. You got chicks in bikinis, you got people doing business. It was a very prosperous place. Then the Islamic or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, whatever they call themselves these days, they took over in a coup, and now chicks are supposed to have no rights and wear burqas for the more traditional places. They get prosecuted very heavily when it comes to Iranian law. And it's a dictative, oppressive society. It sucks. Nobody wants to live there. People don't escape to live in Iran. They escape from it. So there is a lot of history between the Shah and the Chicago mob. And that's something I know a little bit about, being from Chicago, having read the book Double Deal by my former police chief, who was indicted and charged and convicted on accessory to murder with the state prosecutor's wife, who was a dean at a local college. Long story short, he talks a lot about the relationship between Iran and the Chicago Mafia within that book, and how it has to do with slot machines, believe it or not, for all my Illinois residents. Whenever you see slot machines everywhere. So fast forward a few years, now Iran has always hated Israel. They're Islamic, Israelis are Jews. Everybody thinks that the Jews stole the land from the Muslims. Watch the hose, buddy, don't spray dad, because I'm on the video. And we support Israel for whatever reason. I still don't necessarily understand that entirely. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just peculiar, to me at least. I've got nothing against Israel. I love the Israeli people that I've met, but I don't know, some things, of course, right now just don't make much sense to me. So Iran had carried out this terrorist attack on October 7th, a couple years ago, which they literally just had a bunch of militants break through the barrier, which was a border. It's like, imagine living in Illinois and all of Hamas was in Indiana, and there was an actual barrier, like a border wall fence, and they breached it, came in on hang gliders, had machine guns, automatic weapons, RPGs, grenades, and they literally just started attacking everybody. Like, you're sleeping, and then you're waking up to the sound of gunfire, and then it's not just gunfire, it's like 1,000 armed Hamas militants are on your fucking city block, and they're murdering everybody. Everybody got massacred. I mean, over 1,000 people were killed that day. And if you're gonna tell me Mossad, the world's greatest intelligence force, had no clue that that was ever going to happen, then I don't know. I don't. My personal belief is I'm not exactly convinced about that, and that's really depressing. Which is going to be the main focus and topic for today as to why I think at least all this stuff is happening. It's something called the Ben Gurion Canal, but we'll get to that here in just a second. So we support Israel, obviously, and Iran has said many times before they're going to kill all of Israel, they're going to kill all Americans. They're this extremist Islamic group where most of the people in the nation don't even necessarily support the government because it's oppressive. And they've threatened to literally wipe the United States and Israel off the face of the earth on many occasions. That's not something to not take seriously. So when all these previous presidential administrations have come in with lax standards and lax guidelines against Iran, in my personal belief, I think it's to stoke the flames of conflict later down the road so they can, make billions off of their investment portfolios inside of all these military industrial complex companies, because they know it's going to happen eventually. They start to enrich uranium, and you can't do that because that means they get a nuke. And if they get a nuke and they bring that in the United States, which it's probably really easy to do, relatively speaking, of course, then we'd be fucked. Like they're going to do that. Countries, Islamic extremists like this, they don't just say shit and not do it. They really, really do it. And so they will absolutely 100% detonate a nuclear warhead in the middle of Israel, in the middle of America, biggest cities, millions of people wiped out. You have to take that seriously. Now, why is this current spat of conflict happening? Well, it's because Iran funded Hamas and Hezbollah, the proxies, to attack Israel. It's been going on for a long time. So they can claim that they don't have any direct involvement with it whatsoever. Very subversive, but everybody knows the truth of what's really happening. And Israel's pissed, and I get that. You know, when the original borders were made back in the 60s, the Arab world tried to destroy Israel. They basically signed the paper, signed the dotted line, said, hey, everything's cool. These are the boundaries, these are the borders. And then right after the ink dried, it was like everybody literally attacked Israel trying to kill them. And Israel beat everybody's ass. And so now they're believing that they're prophetic, you know, with their religious beliefs. And that brings me to our next kind of point here now is, you know, what was the attack and what could we really expect? So the United States, for whatever reason, supposedly because of the enrichment of uranium to a nuclear warhead capability level, attacked the absolute dog shit out of Iran. I mean, Donald Trump, dude, you killed Soleimani, respect. You tomahawked Assad over in Syria when you said you would, respect. I'm not saying that I support this. Obviously, we're going to see in the near future if this was a good call or a bad call. It's one of the things about life. You don't know. I can't even imagine the weight of the world that man has on his shoulders. But I do believe that God spared his ass in Pennsylvania for a reason. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if this was a good call. But we just dropped, I think they said 15 of the largest bombs that we have in our arsenal next to nuclear bombs. Here's nuclear bombs, number one. Here's this one, number two. And we dropped 15 of them. It was $2 billion. Hey, buddy, be careful.
Cheers, Dan.
It's okay, buddy. Yeah. Do you want to go inside and drink some milk? Okay. $2 billion of bunker buster bombs to destroy the fuck out of a nuclear enrichment facility embedded deep within the Iranian mountains of Persia. That is pretty freaking gnarly, and the complexity of the assault and the way that this is historic. They pushed a feint of stealth bombers to the Pacific, immediately sent another bombing team, completely surreptitious, across the entire globe, undetected. That is insane. Against the most advanced anti-aircraft radar system that we've put ourselves up against, I would say. And man, I mean, that's so crazy. He gave him 60 days. So what do? You know, when you're dealing with these type of people, do you just say, oh, we don't know, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But when you're negotiating, you have to draw a line in the sand at some point. And honestly, Trump does talk about this in all of his books where he says, hey, man, you have to mean your word and live by your word. And this could either send a major signal to the rest of the world or, of course, cause major problems, which brings me to why Israel kicked everybody's ass so bad during the 6-day war to begin with. And they've never given those boundaries back, which is a big reason why there's a lot of contention down there. In his book, Raphael Patil's The Arab Mind, he talks about Arab culture. I think he's an Egyptian, if I remember correctly. It's been a very long time since I read this book. But he talks about Arab culture and saving face and family honor and all that stuff. I mean, you look at the conflicts in the Middle East, these people have been fighting for 6,000 years because of something somebody's cousin did all the way back then. That's how intricate and detailed they are with their family lineage. It's insane. So they are very much about keeping the affront of, hey, nothing's wrong, we're winning. Israel was beating the shit out of everybody, and they were outnumbered 20-1 back in the 6-day war. And yet they won, they dominated. Why? Because the generals of all the different Arab nations were lying to their commanders about the successes and the failures on the battlefield because they wanted to save their own face. They're like, no, I refuse to believe that we're losing all these fighter jets to these couple of Israeli fighter jets. And that was the reality on the ground. So they never asked for resources. They never asked for support. And so that led to Israel kicking the shit out of everybody, because all the top commanders were like, all right, cool, we're kicking Israel's ass right on. And then they just keep getting back these reports on all these people being dead. And no ground has been taken. And eventually somebody's just like, what's going on here? They found out. So, what happened when we killed Soleimani? I'm not going to lie, man, I was super nervous about that. We just killed a sovereign nation's general. But to be honest, he had been messing around in Iraq for a very long time. There were multiple battles where U.S. forces and Iraqi Quds forces, which was Iranian Quds forces, literally, the PMF was flying pictures of the Ayatollah on an M1 Abrams tank. That was actually when I decided I was done with the Marine Corps. Just got told to leave the Kurdish positions. The Iraqi government was going to go into a civil war against the Kurdish people right after we finally pushed ISIS out of the rest of Mosul and Tel Afar and Baj, or whatever that other city was. They started turning on each other because they wanted all their traditional Iraqi territory back that the Kurds fought for and bled for and won because it was oil rich. And we got told we supported the government of Iraq. So we were told to abandon the positions. And then when we abandoned the positions, we went to the command center and saw on the screen, the UAV, the drone footage, clear as day, M1 Abrams tank, freshly given to the Iraqi military, flying a picture of the supreme leader of Iran, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Like, tank fires, hits the Kurdish position. I think if I remember correctly, one guy got wounded, one guy got killed, then the other one. Then they actually opened up on the tank with some sort of, man, I really wish I could know what that was. It was a German anti-tank rocket, and it messed up the Abrams tank, which is insane. Maybe it's an older variant of Abrams tanks that we gave them. Maybe we haven't given them the most advanced versions because I just assumed that wouldn't have happened. But that definitely, that German anti-tank rocket freaking messed up our M1 Abrams tank that we gave to the Iranian military, because that shit demobilized it. Dude was crawling out burning, like it was insane. And tanks have some overpressure system where like flames shoot out the back or something like that happens. It was gnarly. Anyways, Soleimani had been on the battlefield a lot, and we had just been letting it happen during the Obama administration, and we were never allowed to actually do anything about it as special forces operatives on the ground. And so what happened? Well, he kept messing around and Trump killed him. Okay, I can respect that. I actually was very happy to hear that, but I was very nervous at the same time. But now we're sending stealth bombers, bombing them in their country, you know. What can we expect? Well, Iran is in a really bad position, especially the IRGC specifically. And that's what I'm talking about when I say Iran, because the Iranian people, I bet are freaking awesome. I've met plenty of Iranians in my life who are great. They don't like the government that they have. It's very oppressive. That's why you don't hear much coming out of there. Hamas has been obliterated in Gaza. I mean, that's just the reality. A lot of innocent people too. I'm not saying I support that whatsoever, but Hamas has been obliterated. A lot of the Iranian supplied weaponry is depleted. Hezbollah was just decapitated with this surreptitious pager attack where Israeli Mossad intelligence, and this is why I say if they didn't know October 7th was happening, I call bullshit, but this level of complexity was where all the major Hezbollah, so this is up in Lebanon on their northern border now, they gave them these pagers and timed an explosion, had little packed explosive in it, set off a beep, 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 and simultaneously killed, I don't even know, dozens, maybe hundreds of people. And then recently, they hacked Iranian communications, put out a message for an emergency meeting at a classified gathering location for Iranian command personnel, Iranian generals, like 9 of them or something, and then blew it up. Like they called the top 9 generals into a trap and killed them all. This just happened a couple weeks ago. What's up, buddy? Almost, but Dad is almost done. Okay, buddy? Thank you for saying excuse me. I like it when you're nice. That's crazy.
That's funny.
Yeah, Dad's almost done, buddy. So, the 2 proxy groups which Iran has always supported are not doing too good right now in terms of manpower and resources and momentum. Syria, on the other side of all this, is now gone. Assad has been taken over, toppled by which one of the 200 faction groups that there were in that Syrian civil war. Iran has already used a vast majority of the weapon systems that they had available in the current conflict against Israel. So what do they really have to do? Well, they had to hurry up. They used the nuclear enrichment program as leverage, and Trump said no more. And he bombed it so hard. That's the heaviest bombing campaign that we've done, I mean, probably ever. When you look at the metric tons of explosives that were used, man, that is insane. With the fewest amount of bombs, with the most strategic global impact, like that is pretty drastic. So what Iran has to even fight back with, sleeper cells within the United States, Houthis, even though they've been decimated even too down in Yemen. You know, here's the thing. The most realistic scenario, I know today they said they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is strategically important for importing oil all over the world. Like 20% of the global economy of oil goes through there. That's just not going to happen, because that's self-deletion, that's obliteration. The world is not just going to stand by and let them do that, which is kind of also scary when you look at all the people who would support each other, like Pakistan supporting Iran. But even Russia, what's Russia going to do? They're bogged down in Ukraine, and China's preoccupied with Taiwan. Like, all these potential allies, or allies that Iran has, man, they don't stand a chance against the U.S. military right now. And so if Trump's true and he's just like, hey, told you no, made it happen, that's it, which, man, I want to say I believe him, but I just hope. I mean, I don't know. That's the truth of it all, right? We don't know because we're not in these meetings behind closed doors. But the most realistic response that I could see occurring, so for those of you who are nervous, here it is. They're probably going to step up some attacks on U.S. bases, but even when you look at what they did in retaliation to Soleimani, their literal top general, like second to the supreme commander or whatever, all they did was launch some rockets at a U.S. base, but they warned the Americans the rockets were coming. So they fired it at a Shia militia U.S. coalition base in Iraq, that Iranian Quds Force that are disguised as Iraqi paramilitary force or Popular Mobilization Force, PLF. They said, hey, we're shooting rockets at you. You got about like 2 hours or something before they impact. Okay? And it's a little bumper. You know, so they save face by attacking the military base, but they give the warning. They probably just don't propagate that information to their people because they want them to think they're still in control. You'll probably see an increase of that. You'll probably see some sort of retaliatory action so that, you know, they'll fire 1,000 rockets into Israel or something, you know, to be like, yeah, see, we showed them, we killed so many Israelis, we're so tough, because that's just in congruence with history and the Middle Eastern Arab culture, at least from a command perspective in these types of places. You know, they say they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, so what does that really mean? The pirate attacks, Houthis, ship attacks, which is very possible. And that's 20% of the world's economy of oil goes through there. This is what I think the ultimate goal and objective was. So why did we do all of this? Well, and just really quickly, the other thing you may want to be wary of is, yeah, of course, sleeper cells, but I don't know. I really don't. I'm worried about schools more than anything, and there being an October 7th style attack, like thousands of people running across the country with AKs and machine guns and suicide vests. I think that'd be horrible. But we'll cover that here in a second. That's actually the easiest to prepare for, if you ask me. Now, why is all this even happening? Everything in the world, basically, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but the Suez Canal travels right through that Middle Eastern region, which is owned, if I'm correct, by Egypt, if I remember correctly. And everybody who goes through there has to pay a major fee. Not only that, but the Suez Canal can only take one direction of travel at any point in time. If you remember a couple years back, there was a ship that got stuck and actually plugged up the Suez Canal, and the world went insane because all shipping got delayed like by 8 months, and the ship was stuck there for, I don't know, like a week or a couple weeks, you know. And it just obliterated our shipping industry and the world economy, that one small little sliver of land. So it's a bitch, and we as Americans and Israelis don't own it. However, there has been plans in the past that were drawn up which could turn the world economy into a new era of growth and potential capitalism. And in my theory, that's what it's for, and prosperity, the golden era. And that is by the creation of something called the Ben Gurion Canal. And the Ben Gurion Canal was originally created when Israel got their land back post-World War II, and their first leader, prime minister, I don't know what you call him, president, his name was Ben Gurion. And instead of having to use this tiny Suez Canal where ships would be attacked and taxed and fined and all sorts of stuff, like the U.S., we don't lower our flag when we go through there because it's owned by Egypt, and so we have to pay like a $50,000 fine every single time we have a ship passing through there, but we're just like, yeah, fuck you, like the Navy ships. Every other country doesn't do that. What's up, buddy? Okay, I'm almost done. And so Ben Gurion came up with this idea of creating a new canal from the Red Sea up over into the Mediterranean. And it cut off from the east instead of going up through Egypt in the Suez Canal. This would cut through land. It would be a massive undertaking and project, and it would spill out into the Mediterranean. But guess what's in the way? This little town called Gaza. And so when you look at the plans for the Ben Gurion Canal, Gaza is literally right at the mouth of it all. And so they need to obliterate that. They need to build a newer, nicer one somewhere. They need to get rid of the people who are going to cause them fucking problems like Hamas. They need to do all this stuff so they can level it out, dig it out, create this canal. And this canal will be so big that it could actually run traffic both ways, all times of the day. Not just one-way traffic for half the day, one-way traffic back the other way. Imagine how much more commerce and trade can be conducted. Not only that, but guess who will own it? The Israelis and the Americans. And we will tax, and we will fine, and we will charge everybody to use that canal. And it will be at a rate to the fourth exponential, I presume, maybe even more, from what is currently transported through the Suez Canal. And you can look up to see what those numbers actually are. This would be the greatest economic development program ever in the history of mankind. This is unprecedented. And so, if that's true, obviously it's sad that people are dying. It's always sad that people get murdered and slaughtered, all that stuff. My question is, what would you do if that was true? Like, you're the president, what do you do? I don't know. I'm not there, I'm not privy to those conversations behind those closed doors. But anyways, that's all my context for you guys. If you have questions, of course, let me know, because to me, it's like people know this stuff, but most people don't, because they've never been over there. They don't experience these cultures. What can you do? Well, just prepare yourselves, guys. Don't watch the news. Don't be buying into all the crazy headlines that you see, because again, we don't know shit. It's all facade at this point. We don't know the conversation behind closed doors. Just continue to prepare yourself and be in good physical condition and have guns and ammo in case you fucking need them, and learn how to use some body armor kit, take some tactical training if that's as far as you want to go with it. But you don't even have to go that far with it. Just have some means of defending your family. Have some stored gas so you can drive at least a couple 100 miles and get yourself out of a city somewhere. Have some provisions in the house that are designed for emergencies. And then you really don't have to worry about much. You really don't. And that's why I don't lose sleep over this stuff. Don't buy into the hype. That is also a part of a greater psychological warfare campaign, information psyop being run against you. They want you to be in a constant state of fear and panic. So the only way to truly not do that is to be capable of keeping the sympathetic nervous system cool, calm, collected, because you have the ability to defend yourself in all situations of life. And you're never going to give up, and you're never going to quit, and you're never going to stop, because you're fucking extraordinary. And this life means more to you than just tiptoeing safely around it and getting by until you die. Like, this is something you enjoy doing, and learning how to protect it is one of the most critical, if not the most critical, essential thing. Because you get nothing if you don't know how to protect these people that you love. I'm really wishing for the best, guys. Hopefully Iran just talks a big game. They don't do much of the retaliation, and then we all move on. But I think that this is a long-term project, and I just hope that our kids don't get drawn into this thing. I hope the American people don't get drawn into this thing, but kind of already have been already on.